Hello, I'm Sarah from Truth, Lies, Betrayal. Welcome to Horror After Dark. Turn down the lights, keep an open mind, and prepare for tonight's nightmare. Let's begin.
I never believed in cursed places. I thought most stories had explanations. Old buildings make noise. Shadows play tricks. People scare themselves. That's what I believed when my friend Daniel asked me to help film an abandoned chapel outside our town. Daniel made videos exploring forgotten places, not ghost hunting, just documenting old locations. One Friday he messaged me, found something strange. Old chapel about 40 minutes away. Want to check it out? I agreed. The chapel stood alone at the end of a gravel road surrounded by dead fields. No houses, no lights, just a cracked stone building with part of its bell tower collapsed. The moment we stepped out of the car, everything felt too quiet. Daniel was excited before we even got out. People say there's a hidden room under it. I laughed. Every abandoned building supposedly has a hidden room. Inside, the chapel looked untouched for decades. Dust coated every surface. Rotten wooden pews leaned at angles. At the front was a faded altar, and behind it a large wooden cross that had fallen sideways. No signs of vandalism. That was strange by itself. Daniel filmed while talking quietly into the camera. We checked side rooms and storage areas, nothing unusual. Then Daniel noticed scratch marks on the floor behind the altar. They formed narrow lines in the dust leading to the wall. We moved the broken cross aside. Behind it was a square metal hatch built into the floor. No lock. Daniel looked at me and smiled. That should have been enough to leave. Instead, we opened it. Stone stairs disappeared into darkness. The air coming up felt cold and dry, not damp like a basement. It felt sealed. Daniel switched on a flashlight and started down. The room below wasn't large, maybe 15 feet across. Stone walls, no furniture, just a table in the middle. And on it, a book. Nothing else. No candles, no decorations, just one thick black book. Daniel laughed nervously. This is either the coolest thing ever or incredibly disappointing. I remember one thing immediately. There was almost no dust, not on the table, not on the book. Daniel started recording. The cover had no title, no writing. He opened it. The pages weren't handwritten. They looked printed, but old. Every page had blocks of text in different languages. Then Daniel stopped turning pages. He stared. What? He didn't answer. I stepped closer. The page he'd opened to had English. At the top, names of witnesses below were names. Hundreds, each followed by dates. I noticed something. The dates weren't birth and death dates. Every entry had only one date. Daniel pointed lower. Our names were there. Mine. His, today's date. I immediately thought someone was messing with us. Daniel laughed again, but it sounded forced. This has to be fake. He flipped another page, blank, then another, blank, then another. One sentence. Only those who read become recorded. Daniel closed the book immediately. Nobody spoke. I said we should leave. He agreed instantly. We climbed out, shut the hatch, and walked straight to the car. No jokes, no discussion. Halfway home, Daniel finally said, "You saw our names too?" I nodded. Neither of us spoke again. That night, Daniel texted me, "Did you touch the book?" I replied no. He didn't answer. The next morning, I woke up to missed calls. Daniel's sister. Daniel had been found dead. Single car accident. No witnesses. Time of crash estimated around 2:10 am. I went numb. At the funeral, I couldn't stop thinking about the chapel. A week later, I drove back. I don't know why. Maybe guilt. Maybe I wanted proof. The chapel was still there, but inside the hatch was gone. The floor behind the altar was solid stone. No scratches. No sign it had ever existed. I searched for nearly an hour. Nothing. I convinced myself I imagined everything. Until I got home. On my desk was a book. Black cover. No title. I don't remember bringing anything back. My hands started shaking. I opened the book. Same pages. Same names. But Daniel's name had moved, not under witnesses anymore. Now it was under confirmed. His date stayed the same. I flipped through until I found mine. My name was there, but the date had changed. The day we visited was gone. Now the space beside my name was blank. Waiting, I locked the book in my garage. I never opened it again. Months later, I found the box open. The book stood upright, open to my page. The blank space wasn't empty anymore. It had tomorrow's date. I never believed in rituals, spirits, or any of the stories people tell after funerals. My grandmother used to say that grief makes people see things that aren't there. I agreed with her until I attended a funeral in a town that still followed traditions nobody could explain. 2 years ago, my coworker Ethan invited me to his uncle's funeral. I'd never met the man, but Ethan didn't want to go alone. His family lived in a rural town about 3 hours away, and according to him, funerals there were different. I assumed he meant old-fashioned. We arrived in the afternoon. The town looked frozen in time's small houses, empty roads, people standing outside without speaking. Everyone seemed to know where we were headed. The funeral was held inside a narrow chapel near the cemetery. Nothing unusual at first. Then I noticed the candles. There were dozens of them surrounding the closed casket. Black candles. Not dark red, not faded white, pure black. I leaned toward Ethan and quietly asked why. He looked uncomfortable. My grandmother says black candles absorb the dead, he said. I laughed a little. He didn't. Inside the chapel, nobody cried. Nobody spoke. Every person just sat quietly while the candles burned. Then an older woman stood near the casket and addressed everyone. She said, "When the final candle dies, nobody speaks to the departed. Nobody answers if spoken to." That got my attention. I whispered to Ethan, asking what she meant. He shrugged. Local tradition. The service continued. About 30 minutes passed. Then I heard something. A knock. Soft, 3 taps. Coming from inside the casket. I looked around expecting panic. Nobody reacted. Nobody. People stared forward like nothing happened. Another knock. This time louder. Someone behind me quietly started praying. I looked at Ethan. He was pale. I whispered, "Did you hear that?" Without looking at me, he said, "Don't acknowledge it." The room suddenly felt colder. Then came a voice. Weak, muffled, "Please." Every hair on my arm stood up. It sounded like an old man. The dead man. Someone near the front began crying silently but never turned. Again, "Can somebody open this?" I stood halfway out of my seat. Ethan grabbed my wrist hard. "Sit down," I whispered. "Someone's alive." He looked at me and quietly said if they were alive, nobody here would still be sitting. That sentence stuck with me. The voice continued. Slow, confused, calling names. Begging, people stared at the floor. One woman covered her ears. Then I noticed something strange. The black candles. Their flames weren't moving. No flickering. Perfectly still. One by one, they began going out. Each time one died, the voice inside became weaker, less human. The knocks became slower. Then came silence. Only one candle remained. The old woman stepped forward. She looked directly at the casket and said, "You had your chance." The final candle went out. Complete darkness. Only for a second. When the chapel lights came back, the lid of the casket had shifted open. Just slightly. Nobody reacted. The service ended. People stood and quietly walked outside. I stayed behind. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. The room was empty except for me. And the casket. I walked toward it. I know I shouldn't have. I looked inside. The dead man looked normal. Peaceful, except for one thing. His hands. His fingers were shredded and covered in dried blood. Deep scratch marks lined the inside of the lid. I backed away. Then, I noticed something placed beside him. A small burned piece of black candle. Wrapped in paper. There was handwriting on it. 3 words. For those returned. I left immediately. On the drive home, I asked Ethan if anyone had ever opened the casket. He stared out the window and said years ago, someone did. I asked what happened. He stayed quiet for a while, then said they buried 2 people after that. I never asked again. Months later, I looked up black funeral candles. Most results talked about mourning traditions, nothing else. But one post buried deep in an old forum had a single sentence: if the dead ask to come back, make sure it's really them asking. I never believed in cursed places. I used to laugh at horror stories and assume people scared themselves. That changed 3 years ago. My friend Ethan loved exploring abandoned places and filming them. One Friday night, he showed up excited. I found somewhere weird, he said. Middle of nowhere. Locals call it the Bone Circle. I laughed. He didn't. People said hunters avoided it. Campers heard footsteps at night, and someone disappeared there years ago. We decided to go anyway. The weirdest part? Nobody knew who made it. We drove 2 hours and ended up on a dirt road leading into dense woods. It was almost midnight. Ethan brought his camera. I brought a flashlight. After 30 minutes of walking, we found it. The Bone Circle. At first I thought someone had dumped branches in a ring. Then I realized they weren't branches. Bones, hundreds of them. Small bones, long bones, yellowed white under our lights, arranged into a perfect circle about 15 feet across. No animal skulls, no signs, just bones. I stood there staring. This has to be fake. Ethan stepped closer. No way. He crossed into the circle. Immediately the woods went quiet. No wind, no insects, nothing. Ethan froze. You hear that? I said, hear what? He looked around. Someone walking. I heard nothing. Then crunch. Behind us. Like someone stepping on leaves. We turned. Nobody. Crunch, this time from the left. Crunch, behind us again. Slow, measured, walking around the circle. Ethan laughed nervously. Probably an animal. But he wasn't smiling anymore. I pointed my flashlight toward the trees. Nothing. Then the sound stopped. Ethan lifted his camera. Did you notice something? I looked. The circle seemed smaller. I thought my eyes were playing tricks. But Ethan backed up and looked down. The bones weren't where they had been. They'd moved. A few inches inward. I stared. No. Impossible. Then crunch. Directly behind Ethan. He spun. Nobody, but something pale moved between the trees. Tall. Too tall. Gone immediately. Ethan whispered, "Okay, we're leaving." He stepped toward the edge. Stopped. The bones. They had shifted again. The circle had gotten tighter. Maybe 12 feet now. Ethan laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because he was scared. We both stepped toward one side. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Walking fast now. Circling us. I swept the flashlight. Nothing. But every time the sound completed a lap, the bones moved. Closer, the opening disappeared. Ethan climbed over. The second his foot touched the other side, he screamed. Not loud. Short, like something hit him. He fell backward into the circle. His camera flew into the dirt. I ran to him. His ankle, something had wrapped around it. White, thin, a human arm bone. Then another. Then another. The bones near his feet started shifting. Moving, sliding, stacking, like invisible hands were building something. Ethan started kicking. Screaming, I grabbed him and pulled. The bones snapped apart. We ran. Branches hit our faces. Neither of us looked back. But I could hear it. Crunch, 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 following us. Always just behind. We reached the car, locked the doors, sat there breathing. Nothing followed us onto the road. Ethan didn't talk the whole drive home. He never talked about that night again. 3 weeks later, Ethan disappeared. Police found his car, phone, and wallet. No Ethan. Later, I went to his apartment and found his camera. I watched the footage. It ended inside the circle, mostly static until one frame appeared. The camera faced downward. Ethan and I stood inside the ring. Outside it, dozens of thin figures stood watching, each missing pieces of themselves. Then I saw one face. Ethan, smiling. I destroyed the camera. Never told anyone. But sometimes at night when my room is silent, I hear slow footsteps, walking in circles, getting closer.
Hi, it's me, Sarah. The story may be over, but some nightmares never truly end. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join us for more terrifying stories here on Horror After Dark. And remember, sometimes the things that scare us most aren't hiding in the dark. They're already inside the house. Good night, and sleep carefully.